right, and we are here again, and we are back again. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Drew.
And this is the Back Again podcast. This is the only movie review show that takes a sequel from the past and asks the question, is it worth going back again? And today, we are doing the follow-up to the comedy classic Airplane that came out in 1980, and we are doing Airplane 2.
This holiday season, let Paramount Pictures take you for the ride of your life with Airplane 2, the sequel. Get your ticket for the funniest movie of the year. Airplane 2, the sequel.
I got smoking, non-smoking, first class, coach, economy, by the aisle, by the window.
Airplane 2, the sequel, reunites old friends.
Ted, I have the strangest feeling we've been through this exact same thing before.
Except this time I know exactly what I'm doing, Elaine.
But Ted...
Airplane 2 comes out in 1982. It's written and directed by Ken Finkelman. It's starring Robert Hayes, Julie Haggerty, Peter Graves, Lloyd Bridges, Steven Stucker, and William Shatner. I mean, how would you describe this movie, like, in a plot-wise? It's really just a vehicle to see how many bits and jokes you can do.
Yeah, it's just another vehicle for gags.
In order to describe the plot, you kind of have to go back to the first one, and the first one...
Because it's the exact same.
Yeah, and basically the first one, it's based off of like 1950s disaster movies, and one in particular called 0 Hour. And 0 Hour was an airplane disaster movie that the writing team of ZAZ, they liked that plot so much because they thought it was like the perfect disaster plot that you could do a parody of. So much so that they ended up buying the rights to that script just so they could like actually copy it, because when they wrote the script they used so many of the beats and actual lines of dialogue from that movie 0 Hour that they were like, I think we have to like clear the rights for this because we're just doing like a parody version of it. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think that the first one is so tight because it's kind of like an already established story, I guess.
Yeah, they have a plot to go off of, but it is still so basic.
Yeah, it's basic, but it's also like perfect because it's simple, and then they can just do as many jokes and gags that they want to do off
So
of it.
then was it like...
It's a parody movie.
But that's why, like, I wonder what the line is, though, because I'm just thinking, like, in the first one, when they get food poisoning.
Yeah.
Like, did that actually happen in the...
It's really just about, like, an escalation of events that cause people to panic. And when you steal, or when you borrow, or I guess when in their case they bought it, when you take that plot and then you use it as a skeleton to just do a bunch of jokes and bits, then it kind of works out in your favor. You kind of have best of both worlds. Because even with that, within the casting of it, and I'm talking about the first one still, you know, they were very specific about casting only dramatic actors, because they wanted to play it straight and let the jokes kind of speak for themselves. Now, we're going to go more into the first one, but then when you look at the second one in regards to the plot, it's like, okay, what are we going to do?
You just do the same thing, but in space. That's all it is.
I guess, but the disaster isn't like a natural disaster in the sense of like food poisoning.
Yeah,
they're basically doing... They're including 2001: A Space Odyssey, right?
Yeah, because the AI takes over.
It's
But the AI doesn't even... The AI has one bit, and then it's
Yeah.
just a threat for like the next 60 minutes. But it never like does anything else. It's just establishes itself as a threat. We've got to destroy it somehow.
Yeah.
60 minutes later, they blow it up with a bomb.
Well, before we get too deep into it, let's just give our general thoughts. So, like, what did you think of Airplane 2, the sequel?
I mean, one thing that just kind of I found interesting is this came out before Spaceballs, which I got a lot of Spaceballs vibes. Not a lot, but like it was more than one.
Yeah.
I don't remember the moments though. It's like cheap laughs, but I liked it. It's hard to judge as like a story because it's literally just a series of gags, and then there's the ones that work and the ones that don't work, and you're like, okay, about half of them worked enough, half of them didn't. So it's like, what is there to say about it? It's fun. It's only trying to be funny, and it succeeds half the time.
Yeah, and I mean, like, both these movies, I guess the reason why I kind of brought up that first one is because the first movie is a parody, and in the second one, they continue, like, the first half of that movie, not the first half, but like the opening scene of that movie continues doing that kind of style of comedy, which is a parody of, yes, an airport, but then also, you know, boarding a flight. But then it keeps going, and then it's like, okay, well, now this is also in space. And it's also, because it's in space, we're going to reference this movie, which is 2001. And then we're also going to have cameos and other references to movies. So I think with the second one, it's not necessarily a parody of a disaster movie as much as it is it's a parody of a disaster movie.
It's a parody of a parody.
It's a parody of a parody.
That's the problem.
And then it brings in other types of movies that could be considered maybe a disaster, but
don't mix.
They don't mix. And like
they don't, yeah, because that's the thing is you would have, if they were trying with the story, they would have at least kind of done the first thing we kind of talked about, which was make Hal more of like the villain instead of just a gag that happens once.
Yeah.
Because except for that, there's no other threat really. The other thing I was going to compare to were the flashbacks. The flashback in the first one is him meeting, I forget the character's name, but the two leads meeting romantically. And that's its own kind of separate gag where they're doing the dance together, the disco dance, and it's just this whole long prolonged gag. The flashback in the sequel calls back all the gags of the first one where now people are testifying at a trial and it's all the same characters from the first one.
Yeah.
So it's all just a rehash.
And it's also like a plot device because it feels like that flashback is there just to justify why there is a sequel.
Exactly.
Like they're going over why the lead Ted Stryker, why he's regressed back into the same situation where he's back in a mental hospital. I guess they add more stakes in this one because they deem him insane versus he deemed himself insane in the first one.
Yeah.
Right? Like he had just war trauma in the first one, but in this one, and I was kind of confused about this and we had to pause it. It's not only that he's being framed for the events of the first one where even though he landed the plane safely and there are numerous witnesses to that, but for some reason they can only find the one guy who doesn't speak, he speaks Urbonics or whatever. But then they also throw in this thing where he was test flying one of these new spaceships, which the Mayflower 1 is based off of, like the technology, and that failed.
But it was all corporate espionage.
It was corporate espionage, and he was trying to say, well, it failed because the tech is faulty, and if you fly the Mayflower 1 out there, people are going to die. So he has to get on that plane. It's like it's like a hat on top of a hat on top of a hat. So yeah, that flashback is just there to kind of like
rationalize
it.
But
it was also really confusing when we were watching it,
Yeah. Which you don't want to be in a lighthearted comedy is confusing.
Yeah. But let's talk about Ted Stryker again really quick, because you could argue that he has like the perfect arc in the first one. And when you just retread over these beats again, where we just saw this with Wayne's World. We've seen this with all the other sequels. It's like, okay, he has to get his respect back and get his girl back. He also has to get his confidence back. And it's just baffling how it really is every single beat again in the second one. In the second one, she's going to marry another guy. He's got to win her back.
Well, that wasn't in the first one.
Well, but he's just got to. But that's what I'm saying. It's just another. It's just another example.
It's a double down.
It's a double down. He lost her in the first one. Had to get her back. Lost her in the second one.
Now he's lost her, and she's engaged.
He's also telling his sad story to people on the plane, and they want to kill himself. He also has this old wartime friend that is going to come back and be in communication with him in the third act to help him land the plane. In the first one, it was Rex Kramer who comes into the control room.
Control tower?
Yeah, the control tower. And he's, helping him land the plane, but he was also somebody, he used to be his commander. In this one, it's William Shatner plays that guy because he's on the moon.
But there's also someone in the control tower.
That guy just kind of works for, because that guy's name is
McCruskey.
And he's just, I think he's just who do we call when we have an issue?
I thought he was in the first one.
He's in the first one as well.
Okay.
But I'm saying that there's a secondary person that used to be in the war with Ted. And I don't know, man. It's just it's really interesting how we've kind of seen a lot of the evolution of a lot of these sequels with repeated beats and stuff. But when you take something like a classic like Airplane and you just do it again, I really was thinking about this, and I think that the best way they could have did this sequel is just set it in the future. Get rid of Stryker, get rid of the all original cast, and just get brand new people.
You think they would do that with something that was so based on gags?
In general, the Zucker brothers and Abrams, they refused to come back for the sequel. They didn't want to do Airplane 2. They went off to do other stuff instead.
Well, yeah, Top Secret.
Well, they also invented a TV show with Leslie Nielsen, and Leslie Nielsen didn't want to return either.
The big problem is, they needed to find another. What happened was Alien just popped into my head, and it's they didn't even touch Alien, did they?
Oh no.
So it's they needed to find.
Well, they did an ET reference when they were at the airport.
Alien. Ridley
no,
Scott's
I know,
Alien.
but there is an Alien reference, not the movie Alien, but
I'm talking about the movie.
Yeah.
Because what you needed was a disaster science fiction movie like Alien, or was Alien What year?
No,
was
that's like 1979.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you needed a horror. You needed a disaster like Alien or 2001.
Yeah.
You needed to copy that beat for beat, not copy the Airplane movie again beat for beat and then just set it in space. It really just comes down to retreading too much, even if it is just like fun callbacks, is so exhausting. And they do it just too many times. I don't think they do it all the time. Like, it's not just callbacks like some sequels are, but they do it enough where it just does get like, what's the point?
Yeah, and I mean, there are like references in the 1980 Airplane as far as like pop culture or things that were popular at that time. But I would say that there is more references in the idea of like what a disaster movie is in that first one. And the second one, there seems to be more references to pop culture and to characters. Like, there's a moment where, like, you know, they just show Tattoo from Fantasy Island because Fantasy Island was popular at that time. And it's like, oh, look, it's Tattoo.
I was just going to say one thing I did like. They put a lot of effort into subtle jokes, and that always makes me laugh.
I think
Not necessarily because they land, but because it's like, oh, they really tried for something like that.
Yeah, the best in the whole kind of two series, and I know there's other sequels after this, but within the first 1 and 2 Airplanes, they are at their best when they're doing wordplay comedy, right? Where it's like, whenever they're doing just quick wordplay like that, I think it's really funny. And yeah, it's like really subtle.
Would somebody please tell me what in Sam Hill a woman is doing up there in charge of that ship?
Well, maybe she's got her ship together.
Can you give the court your impression of Mr. Stryker?
I'm sorry, I don't do impressions. My training is in psychiatry.
Of course.
And to be honest, even going down with that, I think the reason why the second one also suffers is because you don't have Leslie Nielsen. Because he is like the king of that kind of subtle comedy that he does throughout the first one. And I think it's missed in the second one for sure.
I think they do a good job with that. I think it's just everything else lacks. I don't think the movie was bad because Leslie Nielsen was absent. Mm-hmm. I think
I'm not saying it's bad for that reason. I'm saying he's just missed in the sequel,
I guess, but I think it just suffered everywhere else because the subtle and the wordplay. Like, I'm just thinking, like, would more of those, if they had just increased the quantity of those, would that have made it better? It's like, no, those landed. The other jokes needed to succeed, and they all mostly fell flat. Like, and that's the thing too, is like you really have to like make those callbacks. Like, they should be like a rare resource.
Well, it's like, what's the point? Is it just like because you just want to give the audience something familiar and you just want to double down on it? Like,
well, no, that's the thing, is you have to go the extra mile to like make it better, to improve it. And most of the time it's just lazy. Like, you know, they'll use it when they need to fill time. And it's like, no, you need to use those for like very precise moments where you know you can like make them shine, essentially.
Yeah, and you know, this the person that writes and directs the second Airplane, which is Ken Finkelman, he was kind of like a studio hire because they also asked him to direct Grease 2 that same year. I believe this is Paramount Pictures. So he was just kind of like a guy.
Did he actually do it?
Oh yeah, he did Grease 2 and he did this in like the same year, and it's kind of like, he kind of reminds me of like a Rennie Harlow, who is like a good director, but he was very much like, he directed Die Hard 2, he directed Nightmare on Elm Street 4. It's like, who do we got? Let's bring him in. And for some directors, that can be like a really good opportunity. And for the most part, I think that there are a lot of funny bits in the second Airplane. So I do think Ken Finkelman does a decent job. It just, like you said, it's like we're just repeating the same beats again because we don't have anything else. And you can really tell like the intention behind both of them, and I think it reads in the box office and in the Rotten Tomatoes scores, because we've seen this a million times before. It has a low budget, starts with $3.5 million and ends up making like over $130 million. And then they kept re-releasing in theaters all the way up to as early as 2002, and it ended up making like $171 or $177 million. And not only that, it's got like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It does?
Yeah, the first one. And then It's considered one of the greatest comedies of all time. And then when you look at Airplane 2 in 1982, all right, this budget is $15 million.
For what?
Exactly. I'm assuming for the sci-fi stuff or for like the shots of, but it was really like, for a movie like this, first of all, it doesn't look good, and that's the whole point. It's not supposed to be a realistic looking like, you know, spaceship. But the box office is only 27.2 million. And there's really not a lot of information you can find out online about the making of this movie. And I mean, it does have some love online for the sequel. Like, some people do like it. It's got a little bit of a cult following. I think that's because the main cast returned besides Leslie Nielsen, but it still has a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. And To be honest, like, this movie's shorter than the first one, and when it finished, we both looked at each other and was like, wow, that was only 1 hour and 24 minutes. Like, it felt a lot longer than that. And let's not forget, like, there's another element to this second one, and it's another reference, and it's another plot device, which is Sonny Bono is on this plane, and he's got a bomb, and he is going to blow up the plane and blow himself up so that his wife can receive insurance money.
Is that true?
That's literally part of the plot.
Okay.
And then the movie ends with Sonny Bono going in the cockpit and being like, "Can I have my briefcase back now?" I just forgot to bring that up because that was like another plot device that was just like another hat on top of a hat. It's not only that, you know, the robot in the ship is like malfunctioning, it's also, like you said, we have to blow it up. But how are we going to blow it up? Well, we got to get the bomb back from the suicide bomber.
Have we ever done a sequel for this podcast that is like this copy and paste, like plot structure wise, from the first one?
Yeah, I mean, Escape from LA for sure. That's always going to be my reference point.
Because
that movie is so beat for beat.
But that also just went off the rails so much too. This just, because that was the thing, is the plot and structure were beat for beat, but then it just was like crazier in other elements. This is so beat for beat, but it wasn't crazier. It was just.
Well, I would add that
it was just competent.
I would add that it's not crazy enough, because even though it is space travel and even though they are landing on the moon, for the most part, it still plays as if it's like regular airline travel.
Well, they do like, I'm literally thinking like they do like 2 like gravity comedy beats. They do like,
oh, like, you know, when the 2 co-pilots get sucked out in space and they're like, you know, they're like dancing in the sky or whatever. But to be honest, it really doesn't play as anything else. I think there's another moment too where they're like, please stop smoking, and the guy rolls down his window, and since it's space, like everyone goes flying out. But that same gag could play if you were in the air where everything's flying out of the window, you know? So I don't know. I think they really should have just, like, if they wanted to double down and do a sillier one, just go crazy into the future, have the same characters come back, don't justify it, and just like make it an actual like spaceship, and have like everybody wearing different clothes because it's future clothes, and show the future food of air travel. Like, there's just,
if they, here's the thing.
When I think about the plot of this movie, I think it sucks. When I think about the gags of the movie, I'm like, oh, it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But when I think about the first one, I think the plot works and the gags work.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if they went, you know, the half extra mile and just wanted to actually make this good, they would have just parodied Alien, like beat for beat, and then called it a day. You know what I'm saying? Like, almost like bananas how simple this idea is. Because like you said, it's a parody of a parody, when it should have just been a parody of another movie they could have done.
Well, because it's so reliant on references and pop culture things at that time, the one thing I do think works in the movie where I actually started paying attention more was when William Shatner showed up. Like, for some reason, like him just popping up in,
because he gave it a sense of urgency.
Well, not only that, I thought it was just going to be a quick kind of cameo from him, but then, like, you know, you present him like he's on a TV, and then he opens the door, you reveal like he's there.
But
and then
that was literally a Spaceballs bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the same bit.
We'll beam you back, sir.
Forget it. Forget it. No more beaming. This time I'm gonna walk.
President Scrooge, salute!
Hail Scrooge!
But then he just stays, and then he's just there for the rest of the movie. And it was like, okay, like now I'm paying attention. Like, it was good because it needed that, because I was really getting bored. Like, after they defeated the bomb and the robot, I was like, well, what are they going to do now?
They gotta land.
He's got to land, but it took forever to land.
Well, I
like,
think
it
part
really
of the comedy.
did. It's part of not really, because
it's called timing.
I would say that there was like bigger stakes in the first one when he was trying to land, because there was just so many gags that they were doing while he was trying to land. And in this one, it just went forever. And it's just, how many times are you going to cut back to like Stryker and Elaine just like shaking in the cockpit? Like,
I was thinking of the guy shaving in the bathroom.
Oh my
They
gosh,
kept
that
cutting back
bit
to
was-
that. And it'd be funny if it's like you cut back and it's like he peeled his whole face off or something, and it's like a cheap skeleton or something, but it's like, it was just the same footage over and over again.
And not to be like too like specific, but when Stryker gets in that cockpit in the first one, it's very simple. Everyone gets sick. He's the only pilot on board, and he's got to do it. In the second one, like, there are multiple people that can fly this plane, and it is funny watching them all kind of not be able to. But the one guy, this is the fiance of Elaine. His name is Simon Kurtz, and he's just thrown in the beginning of the movie, and he's on the plane with her. She's going to marry this guy, but it felt almost like a cut scene because Simon's with Elaine like the whole time on the plane, and then at some point, like, we just see a shot of a shuttle get launched out. And then when Elaine comes back in, she's like, Simon left us. And I remember looking at you and being like the dude from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, who? Like, I had no idea. Like, who's this guy? Like, what? Oh, that's Simon. So it almost felt like there should have been a scene where Simon and Elaine are talking. She's like, everything's going wrong. Like, we need you to pilot the plane. Like, you're going to be the hero this time. And he's like, I'll be right there in a second. And then he just dips out. And it sets up.
I think they had a scene like that.
They had no scene like that. I will also say another kind of bright side of these movies is the McCroskey character. He's really good in the first one. He's good in the second one. But the one guy that I'm glad I did think he was funnier in the second one is this Controller Jacobs guy, But he's in the first one. He's in the second one. He's like the silly, just kind of says whatever random shit kind of guy too. But he also plays a second character in the flashback where he's in the courtroom and he plays like, I think the stenographer. Yeah. It's just like, so I don't know. There's funny people for sure in the movie and there's funny performances, but when you don't have that really like simple heart and plot and arc, it just gets too wacky and unfocused and just relies on stuff that we don't really give a shit about. And also, let's talk about that one Star Trek William Shatner joke reference, because I think that this was something they added in later. So Shatner's like, he's standing on like the deck of like whatever his station is on the moon. He goes, he's like, bring me down the telescope or whatever. And he looks through it and then he sees the Enterprise fly by.
Yeah, but his reaction is so weird.
His reaction is so weird. I think originally what he was supposed to see was the two co-pilots still floating in space, like dancing. And he was
that
supposed
would have been funny.
Yeah, and he goes like, huh. But I bet you in post, they said, well, we have Shatner here. Let's see if we can get the rights to show the Enterprise. And then that'll...
Like, why?
Yeah, exactly. So you could have done Star Wars, you could have done Star Trek, you could have done Alien, like you said. The 2001 Space Odyssey, you could have made that your main plot, like you said. So it's like you're doing a space disaster parody and you have no space disaster references besides half of one. I think Spaceballs...
The flip of it, and it's hard to just talk about this movie without just saying what they should have done instead.
Yeah, which is just Spaceballs.
Well, the flip of it would have been you develop your characters and have them stay changed, and you put them in a different scenario. Yeah,
like start Stryker out as he's going to be flying this first... like Mayflower 1 to the moon, because
then the stakes are something else.
Yeah, because he was the hero from the first one. He has no insecurities anymore. He's confident. Let him fly, and then put him in a new situation where maybe his solution to whatever the problem is in the second one is something he would have done in the first one, and that doesn't work, and then you have a joke opportunity there.
I was thinking you could almost have a really fun misdirect where it's set up where he's successful now, he's going to do the Mayflower to the moon. It's he's nervous, but it ends up being successful, and then you find out there's like a disaster on the moon that they have to like get through. Yeah. So while they're figuring out the disaster on the moon, he's all confident because he at least got the ship there. Mm-hmm. So instead of having him play super unconfident like the first one, you flip that.
Mm-hmm. I think we should go through the ones we can remember and try to list off all the repeated jokes that they do from the first to the second one.
So many.
There's so many of them. But right off the bat, some of the ones that I think about is like the language barrier between one of the people that was on the flight in the first one, and then they're being questioned in trial in the second one. They take another character from that, like you said, where she was the woman that was getting slapped in the first one because she was being hysterical and everyone was lining up to hit her. And then they do the same thing when they bring her out of the flashback. They're lining up to hit her. And not only that, they repeat that same type of joke where people are lining up to do something in the second one on the spaceship because there is a passenger who is pretending that she's a virgin so that she can sleep with all the guys, including a donkey, on the plane. There's also a reference to another passenger gag, which is this commercial that was popular back in the day. I believe it was a coffee commercial, where someone's drinking, like a husband's drinking a cup of coffee, and then the wife has a inner monologue that's like, he never drinks my coffee. They do these inner monologue bits in the first one, and then they also repeat it in the second one, but it comes off the tail of a very aggressive, like, pedophile rape joke.
No, there was no pedophile. It was just rape.
No, it was a pedophile too, because the people he was raping. So there's a family on the plane in the second one, and there's a father, a son, a dog, and a mother, and the son is like saying like, oh, now aren't you happy we're going to be getting away from here because you won't have to listen to like all those people talking about like you raping those kids? And then he grabs his son. He's like, shut your mouth, you little piece of shit. It's like a really aggressive, like...
well, you got to double down on the joke.
It's not even a joke. It's just like aggressive and weird.
It was a joke in the 80s.
But the point is that at the end of that, after he yells at his son to like, leave him alone, the son has an inner monologue of like, he's usually never this mad about blah, 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 blah. It's like, wow, okay, what a place to put it in. And not just to keep on with like these pedophilia jokes, like the original pilot, Captain Clarence Over, there's this like joke in the first one where every time like a little kid comes in the cockpit, he just asks him inappropriate questions. And
I wonder if that's something from 0 Hour.
I to be honest, you can look up commentary from that actor like for this movie, and he was saying, he's like, how is this a joke? Like that joke in particular of him talking inappropriately to a child, this was like the reason why he didn't want to do the first movie, because he didn't understand what the joke of being just like a creepy pedophile-esque person would be. And to be honest, being like 30 years old, looking back on it, watching it now, it's like, yeah, I don't get it either. I'm trying to think of what the other like repeated jokes. Obviously like the whole control center, like, whoever's like talking to Stryker in the cockpit. I mean, that whole William Shatner character is just repeated, like I said. There's a big joke that they do, which is like in the first one, after he lands the plane, Stryker, he like leaves the cockpit, and the guy in the control center is still like talking to him. He's like telling him like his life story or therapy. And it's the same thing with Shatner. Like literally the spaceship goes through the control center with Shatner, like mows him over almost potentially. And then he's just still talking. He's like, you got it. You're almost there. You got it.
It's bigger and funnier. Everything's the same. That's why it's not fun to talk about all these repeated bits. It's because everything's repeated. Even the beginning, they're just like, it's just a series of gags while they're at the airport.
Well, in general, I think it's like, I wonder who was making them. Like, I wonder if this guy that wrote and directed it, if he truly like wanted to do those repeated gags, or if the studio was like, no, you should do repeated gags. Because there are a decent amount of like original jokes, and then there's some that just don't work. Like a really boring joke I remember is this like, and this is kind of continued throughout it, but it is like the passengers reacting and freaking out. Now there are moments of those freakouts that I like where you just hard cut to like a hockey team fighting in the middle of the chaos, but then they have like that overhead light message thing which is like, stay calm, like everything's gonna be fine, or just kidding, this is bullshit. And then it's like an image of like somebody shoveling bullshit. And I remember like watching all that chaos, and we were all just like silent. So even though I do think there are new jokes that do stand on their own in the movie, I also think that there are new jokes in the sequel that are just worse than the first one. Like they're not funny,
Sir, I pulled Ted Stryker's record.
And?
I don't think you're gonna like it.
God, that's worse than I thought.
So as always on this podcast, we ask 3 questions that lead to a final vote of was it worth going back again. And the first question is, does it work as a sequel? And I'll start off this one really quickly, and I will say no. It does not work as a sequel. It's called The Sequel, and that's good for our brand being a sequel podcast. But no, it's everything we said. It's tired. It's repeated. It's kind of the blueprint of what's wrong with these sequels. But I actually don't think it's as offensive as like an Escape from LA. Like this sequel is exactly like what we talk about the most with the sequel podcast, but I don't think it's as offensive. I think because there are some actual funny moments in there. I think the plot is just too much. And because of that, that's why it fits perfectly into what we usually talk about on this podcast. So no, I don't think it works as a sequel.
I don't think it works either. The other big thing that I can think of is that like the characters just reset and they're exactly where they are at the beginning of the first one.
Which in a way it kind of doesn't matter. Like you don't need to have these actual like growth within characters when you're doing these really ridiculous slapstick comedies that are just like the plots are just supposed to be vehicles for the gags.
I guess, but everything else is still so
But there's something that could potentially work about resetting Stryker and everybody again if they leaned into that and like.
But they just make it a joke.
But yeah, if they made it a joke, but they don't really. They kind of just rely on it so that they can continue to like.
I think they make it a lazy joke.
So that sounds like it's going to get 2 X's right away. So the next question is going to be: is it enjoyable / entertaining?
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel bad saying this is worse than Escape from LA. So I'll go ahead and say yes. At least it was entertaining because I remember laughing a lot during it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it didn't feel like I was laughing enough to rationalize the fact that there was no plot and no character growth.
Yeah.
So I can't deny that it's not entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. I think it just barely gets a check. It is enjoyable / entertaining. Like if you had to watch this, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But when you watch the first one and then you watch this one right after it, it does like even though it does devalue it, it also there are like I said, some jokes that are funny. So that sounds like it's going to get a quick 2 checks. So the last question is going to be: does it need to exist? And I'm going to start with this one, and it's going to be quick. And no, it does not need to exist, honestly. Like, when you do these airplane movies, and I know there's a lot of them, and I haven't seen all of them, but you can almost treat it like an anthology series. And I think what my guess is what they continue to do is just repeat the same beats from that first successful one. And, on this podcast, we say that's a no-go because that's what a lot of sequels do. And what justifies something existing is like, what does it contribute to the genre or to, your movie watching experience? And no, this doesn't need to exist. And I think a lot of people have decided that too, because it did not make a lot of money, did not do very well, and people still just talk about the first Airplane when you talk about Airplane.
I'm going to say no, it doesn't need to exist in this form. It needed to parody a different movie. It didn't need to parody the same movie again.
Yeah.
Even just like I'm thinking like a Scary Movie. Like you do a sequel to that, they're parodying a different movie. They're not parodying Scream again in the sequel.
Yeah.
And it sucks because you had an opportunity there to do like you had the checkbook. You had the opportunity to make a parody movie for millions of dollars. And you even had a good lead with a sci-fi idea. Let's parody sci-fi, sci-fi disaster movie. And you just went for like the laziest approach possible.
Well, I think like we've said, it doesn't parody anything. So like even if we ended up...
A parody's a parody.
Yeah, even if we ended up doing like another one of these parody movies just for a Matt and Drew talk about, whether it's Spaceballs or...
Scary Movie.
No, what was the one you said? Top Secret.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like we know what movies those movies are parodying. So... yeah, it's a parody of a parody, which I don't know, maybe that's the first that we've done on this podcast so far, but it's definitely interesting and weird.
It doesn't work.
So if you're doing that math at home, that's going to be 4 X's and 2 checks, so it's going to get 1 giant X for not worth going back again. And yeah, in the words of Airplane 2...
I don't think you're going to like it.
God, that's worse than I thought.
Thanks as always, everyone, for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, that you comment below. You can listen to all episodes available wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can watch these episodes with video. Just subscribe to What a Guy Productions. Special shout out to Neely for doing our intro and our outro song. And outside of that, you got anything else to add, Drew?
G-U-T-S, guts. Ted Stryker's got more guts in a little finger than most of us have in a large intestine, including the colon.
All right, everyone, we will see you next time for another comedy sequel.